Well, a White House readout of that bilateral meeting said that the two leaders expressed concern about Iran and North Korea providing weapons to Russia amid the ongoing war. So let's talk about this a little bit more now. I'm joined by Behnam Ben Taleblu, a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defence of Democracies. Thanks for being with us. What do we know, first of all, about the missiles that Iran is delivering to Russia?
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you. The Islamic Republic is providing Russia with a close-range ballistic missile. These are projectiles that fly well under 300 kilometers. These are variants of Iran's most precise, single-stage, solid-fueled ballistic missiles. So they're road mobile, they're tactically very useful. Depending on the quantity and the size of the warhead, it's too early to say if it would be a game-changer militarily, but these are weapons designed to conserve Putin's longer-range strike systems and keep him in the game longer.
So have we any evidence that they've been used yet?
Thus far, based on the battlefield, no, but I think it's more a matter of time.
Now, we heard earlier in the week the British Foreign Secretary David Lammy saying the fact that these weapons were being delivered to Russia was meant a change in the conversation about restrictions being lifted on how NATO member weapons given to Ukraine can be used. Do you think it does change the conversation?
It absolutely does change the conversation, both for the support of Ukraine, but it needs to change the conversation even further than that. Both NATO member countries, as well as the EU, UK, US, and even Five Eyes countries need to reevaluate their larger policy towards the Islamic Republic. This is the furthest ever ballistic missile proliferation in the history of the Islamic Republic, and this is the first ever ballistic missile proliferation by Iran into Europe. So this is a game changer. And given the fact that Iran had first given drones to Russia to use against Ukraine about 2 years ago, I think the West and the international community really had 2 years to build a better deterrent against Tehran. And if they had managed to change Iran's risk-reward calculus, who knows, maybe Iran wouldn't have given these weapons to Russia.
So what can the international community do at this point then, if, as you say, they haven't done much to date?
Well, now there's at least two pathways. There's a legal political pathway and there's a military pathway. Militarily, and this dovetails nicely with what you said about the NATO member countries, they need to make sure the Ukrainians have what they need first and foremost to defend themselves, to counter these weapons. That's more air and missile defenses, and then to offset these weapons on the battlefield. So more longer range strike systems, attack them, Storm Shadow, with no kind of political threshold for where and when they can't be used. And then on the political and legal side, there is a mechanism in the UN Security Council that would have restored international legal multilateral penalties that prohibited this kind of transferring of missiles and drones by the Islamic Republic, and that's called snapback, and that will actually expire next October in the UN. So it's imperative to build a legal case for pressure and an economic, a military, I should say, deterrent on the ground where they will be used in Ukraine.
And if we talk about that military deterrent point for the moment, that's what Keir Starmer and Joe Biden have been discussing in the White House. We don't know if they've come up with any firm decision on that, but from what you were saying there, do you think that those restrictions should be lifted? I mean, the calculation always has been the risk of retaliation from Vladimir Putin.
I certainly think they should be lifted, but I also certainly think the way in which the West has engaged with Ukraine under the larger policy of supporting Ukraine, defending Ukraine, helping Ukraine reclaim territory, that also needs to be revised. It needs to be revised because of changing domestic politics here in Washington. Perhaps most importantly, it needs to be revised to make sure that the Ukrainians have what they need to defend themselves and to win. You can't on Monday say the provision of a certain system would be destabilizing, and then on Friday change your position and say, oh no, actually we can give that. The U.S. has unfortunately done that with F-16s in the past, and I think the case of these delayed restrictions on the longer-range strike capabilities, that too may have emboldened Putin as well as Iran.
And what do you think what's your assessment of the risk of retaliation, especially given now this close relationship between Iran and Russia?
Well, this relationship is actually going to deepen, but it's going to be deepening not because of what the West or what Washington or London or others will do vis-a-vis Ukraine. It's going to be deepening because Iran for many years was a junior partner politically and militarily to Russia and a junior partner economically to China. There is this new authoritarian axis forming, and Iran is quite keen on moving from junior partner to mid-level partner, and it will do what it wants to try to curry favor with Putin as well as with Xi. So we need to be much more realistic about this axis and not trying to placate them or incentivize them with these half measures, but really countering them full stop.
How does the situation in the Middle East feed into that dynamic then?
Well, it certainly does, particularly with the news today about the BRICS meetings. The Iranians are trying to socialize much of their messaging about Israel, which we know is this larger anti-Israel, anti-Semitic messaging that they have throughout the Middle East. They're trying to socialize much of that now with their great power patrons. They're trying to get the Chinese to call for the ceasefire using the same language as the Iranians. They're trying to get the Russians to be a bit more divided from the Israelis, particularly in some places like Syria. They've failed thus far, but they're hoping to change that. But in general, they're looking to take advantage of the past 11 months of the Middle East mayhem, particularly as we get to the October 7th anniversary. If I had to take a step back, unfortunately, all else equal, the Islamic Republic has been winning in the Middle East. And it's been winning due to great power cover, but also due to missteps by Washington and other actors in the region. I think Tehran has been able to threaten a wider war and use that to kind of divide America and Israel, which ultimately redounds to the regime's favor.
Okay, well, lots more to discuss, but we'll have to leave it there for the moment. Behnam Ben Taleblu, thanks indeed for joining us.
Thank you.